They can hear us. Hello.
They can hear us on mine too. Hello.
They can hear us. Hello, hello, hello.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Yes. How to even start this stream?
Yeah. I mean, for my title says it all. I think. I guess, and not to. This is not so. Chat. The explanation. This is not going to be a podcast. This is not about us at all.
Yeah.
And I'm curious. I guess. I feel so conflicted about the Blackout Tuesday thing because I understand the point of it. The idea is promote Black voices, promote the cause,
Yes.
promote ways to get involved. But there's all I see on social media is Black pictures. I feel like that's not helping.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why we're doing this is we don't want to just tweet a Black rectangle and call it good.
Yeah.
We want to actually tell you some things, share some things, and talk to you. At least that's my take. What do you guys think about that?
Oh no, I was same way when I didn't know about this until literally when I woke up this morning and it was trending and I was looking at it. I was like, I had no idea that was even gonna be a thing today. And what I see, a lot of people probably misinterpret the message of what it was. It wasn't supposed to be just be completely silent today, because right now social media is the best tool to share the injustice that's happening, to share the cause, share information about getting coordination and information to the people that need it the most. Trying to like unify people through social media is very important, and also just but I think the meaning of Blackout Tuesday was supposed to be put all of your other priorities aside, especially like businesses and stuff like that. Don't tweet about your super sale. Don't tweet about your special whatever. Like today's the day that everyone should share information about the cause. And I feel like, you know, that's the more important takeaway from it. You know, that's my opinion anyway.
My chat knows I talked about this yesterday to a good extent, but whenever you guys wanted to go ahead with the, I guess not the podcast, but with our normal stream today, and wanted to talk specifically about Black Lives Matter and everything that's going on. I thought it was a good idea to do it again, even though there is Blackout Tuesday. Again, like Mark and Bob said, the point of it isn't necessarily just to go dark. It's to emphasize what's going on, give people the information, give them the links, give them everything that they need to find ways to donate and support the different causes that are out there. And I think it's more important for us to stream and to do that than just to stay silent or just simply retweet some stuff, because I think hearing our voices and having access to these links is much more useful than you guys scrolling past another retweet on your timelines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's what we're here to do today. We've got links, we've got compiled information, we've got sources. We didn't make all of these, we didn't make hardly any of it. We just compiled as much as we could to try to share information, share events in a timeline that's going on. Bob actually has compiled a nice Google Doc, which has a bunch of information. Bob, you want to tell people about that?
Sure. So I mean, honestly, I just got my information from the internet, like you do. The Black Lives Matter organization's website is a great resource. They have educational resources, organizational resources. They have all kinds of like guides and things about how to set up a protest, how to organize in your community, things, directives and instructions and tips and things on how to, if you want to get involved in your community, if you are the one who's starting something. But it was not, you know, a quick Google by anyone could find these things. There are myriad ways to help. I think in all of our descriptions or in our chats or whatever, there's a couple links specifically that are really great places to start. The Black Lives Matters .card.co website is a great thing that's set up right now. It has petitions, it has contact information for state, federal government people, local government people. It tells you who to contact, what to say in regards to making sure that the police officers who were involved in the death of Mr. Floyd are brought to justice, are treated as they should be treated by the system, not just, you know, the guy from the video who had his knee on his neck has been arrested and charged, and I'm certainly not a lawyer by any means or an expert, but I and a lot of people think he has been a little undercharged given the evidence just in the video that was released, but also given the other evidence I'm sure will come out. But just there's ways to contact and make sure that you're telling officials and people in charge that it's not okay to do nothing, to just let that slide because it's a police officer. The same website, the card website, also has places to donate, and it has other resources, ways you can help protesters, information about protesters and maps of protests, maps of things being organization, threads about people who are missing, people who went out and participated, and then their friends or family currently don't know where they are. So it's kind of a one-stop shop for a lot, if not everything maybe, but almost everything you need to make sure that you're doing your part to get involved if you want to, and I hope you want to.
Yeah.
But also the other big one that we have that I think we're all sharing is the Black Lives Matter document. It's the link that it's a link to a Google Doc. I think the link is like ally something. The one in my chat is just a link to a straight Google Doc that looks kind of like a scammer, honestly. But it's a document put together by the Black Lives Matter organization that has a broad range of information, including timelines of events. The first thing on it is dates and places of events that have happened and that are going on. The most recent one on the document is June 1st, yesterday, and it's just documenting incidents that are happening, violence that is happening, and it's a way to stay updated. But as well, it has places you can donate, petitions you can sign and get involved with, protests that you can get involved with, and then educational stuff.
Yeah.
So that you can learn more about what is happening, learn about the history of things. That's a big thing for me too. I feel like I feel obliged to say, and I'm not trying to hedge what we're doing, but I'm not an expert. I am not a historical expert. I'm not even fully up to date on all the details of everything that has happened. I'm trying to keep up, but take anything that we tell you that is factual or that you think you have some information that doesn't line up with a grain of salt. You should figure it out for yourself. Obviously, I'm an ally. I think we're all trying to be allies here, but we're also not perfect. We're just trying to do our best,
That definitely is the most important thing, because movements like this, and especially moments like this, are very fluid. And in this day and age of Twitter and Instagram, social media in general, there's so much information. We've never had a situation where protests like this were going on and there was this much information. Every single incident I've seen of problems in the protests, like people looting and rioting or police brutality that was occurring, there have been not just one angle from a camera, but multiple angles. You can see every side of it. And also with that comes the problem of disinformation. Disinformation easily comes out. So you have to take everything that you see and just try your best to vet it. It's important just as a habit when you're looking at stuff on the internet not to take everything at face value. Some things cut and dry, some things very clear, couldn't be clearer, what happened with George Floyd. So clear what happened there, and it's just but some things, especially with all the deluge of information that's coming out of the internet, just be aware of all sides of it. And I'm not saying both sides of the debate. Some things there's no real debate to be had here. I'm just saying just be cautious about the information that's coming out, because there will be people that will try to disrupt the movement and sidebar it and sidetrack it and stuff like that. It's about staying focused on what's important and staying true to the root of the cause and how it's going to affect people's lives in the long run. That's what's important. But it is crazy.
I want to address a couple things that I'm already seeing go crazy and things that we talked about kind of before we went live.
Sure.
People that are throwing out the all lives matter thing versus the Black Lives Matter are missing the point. Just you're flat out missing the point. No one disagrees about that fact that all lives matter. No one disagrees that should be the mantra, but it is not. And the reason it is not is because currently, if you imagine just the bar of where mattering should be, way down below is currently where Black lives are. And Black Lives Matter, the whole point of the movement is to get them to matter so that all lives can. But until Black lives do matter, all lives can't matter. They don't matter until Black lives do. Black Lives Matter isn't about elevating above everyone else. It's just getting to the same standard of living everyone else wants. Honestly, whites are at the top of the heap. Some minority groups are, you can variously sort them right below that threshold, lower on the threshold, but Black lives, in this country especially, are at the bottom. And Black Lives Matter, the point is to elevate, to make it equal. So please don't throw out all lives matter. It's just ignorant, because it's totally missing the point. It's using semantics to distract yourselves from what the point of Black Lives Matter is. I am a white person sitting here telling you Black Lives Matter is an important movement so that all lives can matter. I get why people are like, all lives matter. It sounds better. It does, but it misses the point.
Yeah.
So please stop throwing that out there.
And then my take on that too is the version of that has made the most sense to me is because, like you said, you hear that and certainly it sounds nice to just be like, yeah, well, everyone matters. Obviously, the statement that Black Lives Matters is making is not that Black Lives Matter more than anyone else, and it is not a negative statement about any other race of people. The reason all lives matter is not true is that Black lives matter less than other lives. All lives don't matter. All lives can't matter. That's not a true statement. If Black lives don't matter as much as other lives, that is the argument. That is the statement. People who are, you said this, Wade, but people who are fragile, people who come back and say, oh, so my life doesn't matter. No one is saying that. That's not the point of what they're saying. And that's also not a thing that anyone is actually saying that I've heard. There are different parts of this movement, and I can't speak for everyone, but generally, Wade is dead on. All lives do not matter equally. Black lives need to be accounted for, and Black people need to be seen and heard for that statement to be true.
Yeah, if you hear someone say Black Lives Matter and your first instinct is to go, well, that don't sound right, then you probably need to reevaluate some of your preconceived notions about the world and what it is. I am half Asian, and I have experienced some modicum, just a sliver of prejudice in my life growing up with that. I don't even know the bare minimum of what some people go through because of the color of their skin. Because I can pass for white, I enjoyed many of the privileges that come along with it. I've never experienced the lows that some people that is some people's entire lives. And it's so important to realize that everyone said, no one's disagreeing that all lives don't matter. But right now, we need to support the people that are being systematically oppressed.
Another point I want to talk about here is the sweeping generalizations being made about well, all cops aren't bad and all protesters aren't looting and rioting. And this is true. It's important to make the distinction that all the police officers in the world are not evil. But on the flip side, you can't lump all of the protesters together when some are looting. There are bad people masquerading among protesters that just want to profit off of it. There are people that want to make the protest movement look bad, and they're inciting riots. There was an example the other day of, I believe, now I could be mistaken about the details about the police kneeling as well, but I believe that they were a peaceful protest. The police were kneeling as well, and then some white person on the outside of one of the fenced areas threw a rock. I'm not sure if it was at the police or at the protesters, but when that rock hit, hell broke loose because tensions are high. But that was one white person who started this big thing. And then, of course, the coverage is police are kneeling with protesters. Next thing you know, they're all going crazy and attacking the police officers who were kneeling with them. And it changes the narrative. But the point being, this movement is not happening right now because people want to go as a whole and throw rocks and loot Amazon warehouses. This exists because Black people are being murdered, and murdered by police much more frequently than they should be. Yesterday, I got the argument that more whites are killed by police than blacks are killed by police. The black people are killed by police. That's also misleading because there's a lot more white people than there are black people, so therefore the number should be higher. However, if you look at the percentage of white people killed by police versus the percentage of whites versus the percentage of black people killed versus the percentage of black people, you'll see that there's a much higher number of black people being wrongfully murdered. So just whenever you see these statistics, whenever you see these facts, whenever your brain tells you the wrong thing, because we're all raised with bias, whether we want to admit it or not, we're all raised with have these stereotypes in mind, yada, yada, yada. But it's important for us to try to look beyond it and think, use our minds, use that critical thinking, and see that maybe there's a bigger picture that we are missing. So please keep those details in mind. Don't try to find ways to excuse this. Don't try to find ways to write it off. This keeps happening in our history. These protests keep happening, not because black people want to start problems, but because they just want to be treated fucking equally. That's it. That's all they want. And that's all we should all want, is for everyone to be on that same pedestal.
Yes.
Well, and so to address the rioting thing too, I don't think anyone who is sincerely advocating for the Black Lives Matter movement, who is sincerely concerned about the death of Mr. Floyd in Minneapolis and all the other deaths, I don't think any of them would disagree with you that the rioting and the looting is a bad thing. A lot of people have been talking about the emotional anguish and the pent up anger and sadness and frustration that has led to this. And they are maybe trying to excuse it or to downplay it. The rioting is bad. I don't think that's a distinction. What has led to the rioting is also bad. But the problem is when people say, I totally believe Black Lives Matter, whatever, but this rioting is terrible and that's the main focus. It's fair to say the rioting is bad, but the thing that has to stop is black people being unjustly killed or abused by police who are in positions of power. And it's a deep and complicated issue in terms of relationships between communities and police departments. It's a thing this is a slogan that I've seen a lot from friends online. I understand that I will never understand, and I deeply feel that from what I'm witnessing online and from friends that I've talked to about this before. Black friends that I've talked to about this who've expressed their personal experiences and feelings. I don't think I'll ever understand how that feels. And it doesn't mean that I am not with them, it doesn't mean that I can't be an ally, but it's just such a deep, complicated issue. And the problem is the rioting is a bad thing. The looting is a bad thing. The deeper and more serious long-term problem is the injustice and the abuse towards black communities and the pain and the
Yeah. There was I think that you're absolutely right. Like, you can be against rioting and still be for Black Lives Matter. They are not mutually exclusive. And at the very core, the thing that I need people to like just say a yes or no question to is like, the amount of pigmentation in your skin does not in any way change your potential as a human being. The concept of race, there is the human race. Each of us individually can be an asshole or a saint. Like, it's the potential in each human is there. We are not born with bias, we are taught bias. We are taught bigotry, and we are taught these ideas that some people are lesser than others just because they look different. And that is just a flawed approach. And if you think that in any way, shape, or form, readjust your way of thinking, period. Now, I don't know how much you guys have been keeping up with like the problems, but there's an example that always crops up in my mind that I just saw like yesterday of a video. There was a news reporter that was filming these black store owners. There were 3 of them, and they were saying that they had just been looted. They called the police. They were trying to flag down the police. There's 3 black store owners in front of a live TV camera. They're trying to wave down the police. The police finally come by. They point down the street. They're saying, like, we were just looted. The looters ran off that way. The police immediately arrested the 3 black store owners. And it's just like the reporter is screaming at them, being like, those are not the looters. But the police, because of ingrained ideas, of ingrained bias, instantly thought, oh, black people right here, they must be part of this. Like, they must be a problem. We need to arrest them. They didn't arrest the reporter that was there who was screaming that they were not the looters. They went straight for the black store owners. And it's just an example of these are all small incidences that occur. And in a vacuum, it can be like, oh, it was a stressful situation. Oh, it was just a gut reaction. Why is their gut reaction to not trust someone of darker skin? That's the inherent problem with the system, and it's just down to the way that people are taught to think and the instinctive reaction towards that. And that's that when I saw that, like, that, of all the videos I've seen a lot of videos, that one just like made me so unbelievably mad. There was another one that made me mad, but I'll talk about it later. But just like, I'm seeing people talking about something. I hadn't heard of this. Apparently there's a thing, ACAB, all cops are bastards, which I hadn't heard that until today. I had to ask my mods what that stood for. I don't think we are saying that. And I won't say that. I don't think that that's right to say either. People are like, how can you say this and not this? Here's my one example to try to say you can't. That's another terrible sweeping generalization. There was a video I saw yesterday on Twitter where there was, I believe, a man or a lady kneeling on the ground, and a white male police officer came over, shoved her on the ground, and then started to walk away. And then a female black police officer went over and ripped him apart for it, ripped him a new one, went over, checked on the lady, and she did her job there. Now, granted, this is a black female police officer who obviously has, you know, she can, I'm sure she can see both sides, because I'm sure in the police force she deals with a lot of shit. But I'm not going to throw that term out there. I understand why people are frustrated. I will throw this out there though. Police officers take an oath to protect and serve their communities. They should be held to a higher standard of treating people right than the general populace, because it is their job description. So while I'm not going to throw out that terminology, it is important to keep track of the fact that police officers are supposed to be held to a higher standard. Yeah. You can be against police brutality, and there can still be cops that are actually good cops. However, if you call yourself a good cop and you have people, other police officers that you know are bad cops, and you allow them to continue, you are also a bad cop. There are those cops. There are videos I've seen of cops that, in solidarity with the protesters, literally take off their gear and march with the protesters. Those, I think, are good cops. And I get that there are cops that are fearful of their jobs because the systematic, like, situation that they're in, if they speak up against it, like, they'll lose their job. And it's like, you cannot be indifferent to injustice. Like, and it's so unfortunate, because the good cops that do stand up for it, they're quitting. And it's like, then all that's left are the bad cops. And that's where we've come in the past 40, 50, 60 years since the civil rights movement. It's just like, oh, the good cops are selecting themselves out. They're filtering out because they can't take, because they take a moral stance, and it's so unfair, because those are the ones we need more of. And so it's getting to the point where there are a lot more bad cops, even bad by association. But Wade is correct in that there are still some good cops. Like, I forget the name. Does anyone have the name of that female cop that, like, there's a picture of her just like shrieking at that guy. And if there's going to be pictures
I don't know her name
in the history books, that's going to be one of the pictures, because that is just a very powerful picture.
Well, and the thing, so I want to get this back to this. We're going off on a dangerous tangent here, and I want to focus this on what I think the message of the thing about not all cops. Okay, I don't want to say that slogan, but what we're talking about here is being able to be against police brutality and still understanding that it's not every single cop that believes or acts in that way, that there can be good cops. That applies to all people too. And that's part of why this movement is important, is people are in tough positions. I can commiserate with the idea that police officers are in tough position, like you're saying, Mark. They're losing their job, they're ostracized or possibly in danger from their colleagues if they stand up to, you know, a racist colleague or a group of racist colleagues. You know, I don't know what the consequences are, but people are also capable of changing and understanding. And part of the point of this movement is to talk about it. There are a lot of people in the world who maybe don't support Black Lives Matter or maybe have no idea that this is a big deal. They see it on Twitter and they're like, whatever, and go about their daily lives. Because where they come from, this is not something they're aware of. And that's something outside their control. You grow up in your family, in your town, in your community. And for me, I grew up in a suburb that was basically all white kids. My schools were, I think we had, you know, 98% white kids in my school district. And I did not see a lot of the issues that are so weighing so heavily on Black communities and have been for decades, for centuries in this country. And that created biases in me, that created ignorance that I've had to, you know, educate myself. I've had to learn what other people deal with. I've had to learn what Black Lives Matter is about.
Mm-hmm.
And before it was called that, what the civil rights movement in general is about, why that matters so deeply to so many people.
Mm-hmm.
And there a lot of people in the world grow up